Promptly late like Liverpool. Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We do hope you're keeping very, very safe and well. Thank you so much for joining us. As you can see there, beaming on your screen is Matty Hayes there, very kindly providing us with what Spurs' potential squad may look like for this upcoming season. Of course, a youth element to it. That's what we'll be discussing tonight. If you are listening for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. Of course, on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook too. And in this Sunday night special, we'll be delving into the fact that Tottenham Hotspur closing in, of course, on Archie Gray, and in line with, of course, that PSR deadline that is looming hours upon hours away. And like I say, thank you so much for joining us here. I have to put an out to you, if I can, that this is a alternative mic that I'm using here, so please let me know if this mic isn't going to plan, as I can see a lot of the comments are alluding to, and we are going to change back. But before I do, I want to bring in Matty Hayes very quickly, and Matt is going to cover me for the next couple of minutes as I sort out the mic issue. Matt, I'll hand over to you, such the pro that you are.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's the way that it goes with live shows like this. Audio can always mess you up, but look, it's been a busy day of news for Spurs and for really the all round windows. The PSR deadline looms tonight. I think it is important to mention that while this move for Archie Gray, we'll get into a bit more detail, it doesn't have to be completed today. I think that's a little misconception that's there at the moment. But for anyone who has missed the news, yesterday it seemed as though Archie Gray was on his way to Brentford. He'd gone there for a medical, which it seems as though he actually even completed. However, Brentford then couldn't come to an agreement with Leeds over the fee for that one. That one was off, and very, very quickly after that, Tottenham swooped in and are now leading the race to sign Archie Gray. 𝐼𝐸 Gold amongst the many journalists talking of Tottenham and the talks that have started with Leeds for Archie Gray. It's also, I think, important to note that from 𝐼𝐸 Gold's perspective, he did say that it's at very, very early stages on this one at the moment, and it could be a very, very hefty fee that Tottenham will be paying. Archie Gray, just 18 years of age, and the bid that Leeds rejected was actually rising up to £40 million. So it's a very, very, very big price for this one. And I'll just get you the headline from David Ornstein, who I think was the first one to break this day. He said, Tottenham working on deal to sign Archie Gray from Leeds after Brentford offer turned down. Talks ongoing with expectations on all sides that an agreement can be reached, but nothing finalised yet. And the 18-year-old leaning towards joining Tottenham if he leaves Leeds United. And that's very key, because I think the feeling yesterday when the news of him to Brentford broke, it kind of just felt as though he was going for more of a project. And it seemed, I suppose, a sensible decision that we can really compare to the situation with Antonio Nusa in January, where Gray was going somewhere where he could get that game time, he could be guaranteed football. And well, it looks as though it could be going a different way with a potential move to Tottenham now. So look, let's wait and see how things pan out. I think it's very easy to get ahead of ourselves, but what it's looking like at the moment is very, very positive for Tottenham, and it could be the first one that we get over the line. We get into a lot more about Archie Gray, about his background, about his footballing family that he comes from, which are very, very well known and very famous at Leeds, but also looking at what he could offer on the pitch to Tottenham, because he's a very versatile player and one who has played a number of roles at Leeds over the last season, some out of necessity, but at such a young age, been able to jump into different positions and really make himself a mainstay in that Leeds team this season, which of course just narrowly missed out on promotion. Are we back, Ricky?
I think we are. Please, guys, do let me know. I mean, Matt, how does that sound for you in terms of volume? Is that any better at all?
Much better. The quality is much better. I've been given out to about my volume as well, so let's just see how it goes.
Guys, I've got to be honest with you. You alerted me in terms of that last year, Ben Jacobs, that I've got an audio level that isn't the greatest. So you can blame Amazon for this. There is an Prime Amazon delivery on its way to me tomorrow with a brand new microphone for you lovely, wonderful people out there that are harmonious, bringing you the latest news on Tottenham Hotspur. Thank you so much to Matty there for giving us that wonderful intro. It's the battle of the mics here. I've got Matt being told that his audio is not good enough. You can't win. Should we just talk about transfers? Forget the mic battle. Let's talk about transfers.
Let's do it.
Before we do, Matt gave you a very kind outline there in terms of what is happening around Archie Gray. So let's bring you the news in regards to where we are in relation to the player himself. So we understand Spurs are working on a move to sign Archie Gray from Leeds United after they turned down an offer for him from Brentford. Discussions, as we understand, are continuing, and there is an expectation on all sides that a deal can be struck, although at present nothing has been finalised. Matty, of course, made that point that at the moment the player is in early stages with Tottenham. He underwent a medical with Brentford on the Saturday. And after agreeing in personal terms, we understand he has since had a change of heart and is now leaning towards Spurs if he does depart Leeds United. Spurs were among a host of suitors from the Premier League and across Europe pursuing the 18-year-old midfielder. And the North London club, we understand, have explored the player for many, many months. It looked at one point, of course, as we mentioned, on the Saturday, Brentford manoeuvred themselves into a situation where they were the strongest positional team to win the race. However, Spurs are back in the race for Archie Gray, and we understand they are closing in on the 18-year-old signature. There's a long-held admiration for the player, a firm interest in a player that has already, to some degree, as an under-21 player, shone and showed that he's got a really bright future ahead of him. So we'll be discussing the aspects of that. I am a little bit, Matt, I don't know if you feel the same, always conscious not to go too hard on these kind of moves until the player has got the shirt, as Jason McGovern would tell us. And I'll be honest with you, it was Jason McGovern's way. You and me getting a show until it's actually a done deal. So good job, Jason, isn't it? And Matty is here. And look, we love Jason. We all love Jason, of course. Matty, first feelings for you. Does this player improve Tottenham Hotspur as a squad, as a first team? Overall feeling for you on the player himself, and we'll come on to his background.
Yeah, I absolutely do think he does improve not just the Tottenham of now, but the Tottenham of the future, and that's what's being built by Ange Postecoglou. When you're looking at the signings, and not just Postecoglou, but with Johan Lang up in the recruitment and all that department that we discussed in depth with Ben Jacobs on Thursday. Gray is a player who I think really fits the mould that Ange Postecoglou wants, both on and off the pitch. And I think the off the pitch at first is a very interesting conversation to have, because we know how important that is to Postecoglou. We know how he loves a player who just has the right mentality, and he likes a harmonious dressing room. And it's one of his most famous quotes, most famous philosophies, that one bad apple in the dressing room can completely throw everything off. And again, on Thursday, Ben was speaking about the incredible team that Archie. They're a very famous footballing family in Leeds. His father, Andy Gray, his grandfather, Frank Gray, and his great uncle, Eddie Gray, all played with Leeds. And even his younger brother, Harry, is in the academy at the moment. And there's a very famous quote from a Leeds legend speaking about his great uncle, Eddie Gray, where he said, when he plays on snow, he doesn't leave any footprints. And that's something that has been kind of compared to Archie Gray and the impact he's had on this Leeds team in his first sort of 18 months as a professional footballer. And he's ahead of schedule, essentially, because he's the youngest of any of his family members to play for Leeds. And he actually, at the age of just 15, was playing with the under 23s at Leeds United and was put on a Premier League bench by Marcelo Bielsa. If you can get your head around that, at just 15 years of age. I think even one of his first appearances on the bench was actually against Tottenham. But I think that the fact that his development has been ahead of schedule like that, his maturity is also much more advanced than you'd expect from an 18-year-old. And there's a brilliant piece in the by Phil Hay where he's speaking about the kind of first few forays into professional he had, and he spoke about a couple of seasons ago when Leeds stayed up the last game of the season against Brentford. The very next morning, despite being in that squad and being part of those celebrations in the dressing room, the very next morning, Archie Gray sat his geography GCSE, and there's a quote that Phil Hay says where Gray said, "I honestly didn't find it very stressful," and it was just it's just part and parcel of his life, which is really interesting. And again, like I said, Ben on Thursday spoke about Gray's family and the grounded nature he has, and a very key point that Ben made was that they'll pick what they think is the best pathway for Gray to become the player that he can. And it seems as though Tottenham have presented that project and presented that pathway, just like we did to Lucas Berval, just like we did for Luka Vuskovic, and just like I'm sure we do for a number of those incredible players that we have in our academy.
Yeah, there's some really good points there, Matty. And I've got to appreciate the fact that, the signing for many will definitely be exciting for some. I know for many out there, just to bring a bit of fair balance, many will say, well, look, hold on. Does this player genuinely move Spurs forward? And I think it's a question about what you want Spurs to be. Is this signing a player that is going to genuinely take Tottenham to a point where, as Ange Postecoglou has said in the upcoming season, he wants Tottenham Hotspur to be in a title race? That's Ange's words. That's not my words. That's not Matty's words. That's what Ange Postecoglou tells us. He wants to be in a title race. Does this signing, along with Timo Werner, help Spurs get to that main cause? And I think, again, there'll be many out there that feel, well, look, it's not a proven player by all means, but there's one that's really exciting potential there. And I think what we'll want to really dive into in this show is that Spurs, in a number of windows, as you've been a part of, Matt, as well as a Spurs fan, that Spurs do seem to have this formula where they'll tend to sign in the summer 7 or 8 players, out of those 7 or 8 players, you'll get 1 absolute or 2 absolute gems. Then the rest of the players do seem to be of a more average level that either, for whatever reason, don't seem to work out, or, if anything, really, don't go on to fulfill their potential. And again, I think a signing like this, I think many were saying probably the same thing around the time Jack Clarke was a Leeds player. Very exciting potential, great player for the future. But is this a player that can realise their potential at Tottenham? You may argue that the way Spurs are set up now as a football club with the coaching staff there and the pathway, absolutely it's a player that's set up for better in the long term. But I think that's, again, a question that will be out until we really genuinely do see what this player can do in a Spurs shirt. But look, again, football's changing. You know, football's a really changing sport when you look at the kind of financial fees that are being bandied around for players now. We understand this kind of move is going to really be a fee of around the £35 million mark. It's a huge amount of money when you consider what is out there for 35 million. However, at the end of the day, we know now that in football you are paying that fee for a lot based on potential and what a player can bring. And as we said, just to go through some of those stats there on Archie Gray in a Leeds United shirt, he played 47 games for Leeds last season, created 18 chances, 1,735 passes. And I think at the moment, like I say, with the goals element to it, he did end up getting a couple of goals for Leeds, I have to say. A couple of assists in there, tackles 97 and fouls overall 24. He actually did kind of sound the goals, score an absolutely vital goal, Matty, on their route to, well, trying to get up in terms of the promotion battle. And again, the image that we're displaying for our watching audience here is an image I think that displays the aura of this guy, Archie Gray. At such a young age, 18 years old there. You can see right in the middle of the Leeds United squad. Daniel Farke, of course, the Leeds manager at the moment, on the far right there. Who knows if he'll be there much longer. There's been reports that Daniel Farke is absolutely fuming at the prospect of Archie Gray leaving at the football club, where he's even considering his own future. So, I mean, Matt, can you understand those two sides of the coin when it comes to some fans that would like, ideally, the second signing to be more of a proven signing, given the fact that Timo Werner, I think, as we all know, did really cause some, I would say, some diversion amongst the Spurs fan base?
Yeah, I can definitely understand wanting to get those more kind of experienced and proven players in first. But I would also say, I think Tottenham's hand has been forced here. I mean, we didn't move to really get anything done until it looked like he was on his way to Brentford. You know, it's completely possible that we were hoping to get a few others over the line and then see at the end of the window if this was possible, or see what the details of a deal would be if we then wanted to move. But ultimately, this is a player that we've been looking at for a very long time, that a lot of top clubs, not just in the Premier League, have been looking at for a very long time, and it looked like we could miss out on him. And it's, I think, very comparable to not only the Antonio Nusa deal, like I mentioned earlier, but also Alex Scott and that move that he made to Bournemouth. And I think that's one that we may look back on already with an element of regret. And we just didn't want to have that with this as well. And I think there's, again, another common misconception, which I definitely had in the past, but it has been eradicated by the many fantastic shows we've done on here with journalists, that the idea of Tottenham having a definitive transfer budget going into a transfer window is simply incorrect. It's not like Johan Lang and Ange Postecoglou have been told 150 million for this summer, spend it as you wish. There's obviously guidelines to a budget there, but if this is a deal that we've kind of decided last minute, or if it was a speculative approach that we've made to Leeds that looks like it might turn into something, that I don't think is going to affect the budget that we have to actually build that full team for this season. And also, we're absolutely fine when it comes to PSR, so it's not going to be it's not going to be a problem there. We're also helping out our homegrown quota a little bit with this, which we know has been of concern a lot in the last couple of years. So I can see why there may be frustration and impatience there to want to improve that first team before this. But I honestly don't think there is a comparison there, personally.
Okay, well, look, we're going to dive in a little bit more into the player very, very shortly. But a reminder for you wonderful people out there, there's 1,000 of you watching us live. Again, well, I say 1,000, there's nearly 5,000 of you that are watching us live at the moment on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Again, we can't thank you enough for all your support on YouTube. We've just got over 1,000. So again, thank you so much for incredible support for the show. If you don't already, you need to know now that Last Word on Spurs are back in amongst the Football Content Awards for the upcoming year of 2024. Nominations are open. You wonderful, lovely people did bring us home a trophy in 2023. Can you make it back-to-back trophies for Tottenham Hotspurs? Last word on Spurs. It doesn't happen that often at Tottenham, back-to-back trophies. You can make it happen. You can go right now, hit that QR code for our watching audience, and you can nominate us right here by typing Last Word on Spurs under Best Podcast in the Premier League. And listen, as always, we greatly appreciate your support, your votes, and as you know, we've got loads and loads of shows coming your way. I'm not one that really pushes subscribers. I always feel for me, if you enjoy the content, then naturally, hopefully, people will subscribe. But look, just to give you an idea, me and Matt have got an absolute amazing number of journalists that are bringing us some true insight in these next couple of months. So come and join us on that wonderful road, as you guys always seem to do. You know, we've got such loyal viewers and listeners out there. We appreciate every single one of your support. We most certainly do. And look, there may be questions as to why Spurs are trying to get this deal done very quickly. Matt brought up there a couple of minutes ago around the element of PSR. We've got 2 different deadline days, which is crazy. You know, the show we're on right now, believe it or not, is a deadline day in itself. It is the PSR deadline day, which is why for some players, some clubs, they are up against the clock to get deals done. As we know, Chelsea are one of the movers, as you would probably expect, on this deadline day PSR element to it because of the nature of their squad. Spurs have moved to exploit, you maybe say, some financial difficulties of other clubs in relation to, of course, this situation around Archie Gray, who they understand are closing in on for a fee in around the 35 million mark. What I do want to ask you, Matt, about the player is that the player has operated in a couple of different positions in general. And for those out there that don't really know much about Archie Gray, I think it's really good to bring this into focus that the player itself excelled in a role in Daniel Farke's team last season with the ability to play as a right back, which would definitely suit Ange Postecoglou to the ground. We know Spurs do genuinely lack a natural replacement for Pedro Porro, with Emerson Royal, who we understand to be closing in on a move to AC Milan, and with no disrespect to him, unfortunately not possessing the qualities to come inside and play from those central areas. And the key thing about Archie Gray, I think, is really worth coming into focus here, is that it's a midfielder by trade, although he's shown at right back last season. I think many would look to mark him out as a perfect inverted fullback for Ange next season. And again, to put this into focus, the teenager's form last season was one of the reasons why Jed Spence was unable to claim that right-back spot in that Leeds United side in the first half of the season, which then led, of course, to the player returning to the football club and loaned out again to Genoa. So before we come on to the homegrown element, Matt, on him, how important is the position that he plays to be maybe key to why Spurs want to get this deal done?
Yeah, I imagine it's absolutely crucial. Not only because he does seem to be well molded to that inverted fullback position that the Postecoglou likes. It's something he did a little bit at Leeds last season, not particularly a lot, but something he did a little bit. And the fact that he can also play in midfield. And to look at the last season, he made 44 appearances there, as you said. 30 of these are in right back, 10 of them in defensive mid, 3 in centre mid, and 2 a little bit further forward in attacking mid. And like you do get players every now and then who have that versatility. Like, you know, James Milner's the brilliant example that the people like to use. For us last season, to some extent, it was Oliver Skipp, but at such a young age to so effortlessly slot into different positions. Like you said there, he's naturally a midfielder who played the majority of the season at right back, and he was only forced in there by the injuries that they had in the squad. And it goes to show just how adaptable he is to be able to make that position his own, but also how good he must have been for Daniel Farke to have that trust in him, to put him in such a crucial position in a season where Leeds were vying for promotion and where anything other than promotion was going to be seen as a failure. And I think that actually the point you brought up earlier about the 0 goals, and there's a bit of a debate around that. He Leeds in February had a crucial game against Leicester, which, you know, of course, Leicester went on to win the league, and at the time Leeds were chasing them down and doing quite well in it. They were 1-0 down at home to Leeds, found an equaliser with 10 minutes to go, and they went in front a few minutes later with the biggest goal of Leeds season without a doubt. And it was actually an Archie Gray shot that was going just off target that was deflected in by Wout Faes. So it's debate. Maybe there's a goal there, maybe there's not, but he's definitely the one who created that. Opportunity, and again, just showing up in a really, really crucial moment for Leeds and getting a very important goal for them. And yeah, it's so impressive to see a player of that age who's able to step up in those moments. And for me, there are kind of similarities there to Lucas Bergvall in that he plays like a player beyond his years. If you look at him, you wouldn't say that's an 18-year-old who only has a year of football under his belt. He just plays like an experienced head, you know, not just in his own incredible technical ability and what he can do on the ball, but in other ways, like covering for teammates when they're out of position, or, kind of controlling his own aggression going into duels and stuff like that, and even an element of leadership as well. So yeah, just all these little things, the more you look into him, the more you find out, it just gets more and more impressive.
Yeah, look, again, I think for a player that is so young, I mean, there's such a vibrant buzz around him. And the only way I can describe it is if you look at the reaction from the Leeds fans, just to give you an idea, they feel like they're losing a cult hero who, it now sounds crazy to say that, he's 18 years old. He's not played, 300, 400, 500 games for them. But at the same time, I think, again, you have to recognise where a player with such potential is going to leave a club and leave a big void there. That's how Leeds United fans feel. But again, I won't come away from the point here, guys. I think it's really important that I stress this, that I really do appreciate for some fans out there, they're going to be looking and thinking, we're not signing 𝐅𝐸 𝐂𝐸 yet. We're not signing someone of any, with no disrespect, great esteem in the game in terms of what they've done to date, trophy-wise and career-wise. Again, it is another player that's being signed based on that word that I know many people are frustrated by, potential. I think there is that element this summer where I know many, many fans want to see Spurs go in the market and buy proven quality that have been there, done it, and won it. And I think, again, it's great that we're seeing a young squad definitely looking to build out 100%. And again, I think you can see that's an emphasis since Johan Langer's come in. I think, again, when Parachi's been here, and to bring that point into play, if you don't mind me saying that, Matty, you put out a tweet on X earlier today where you listed what Spurs' young crop looked like here. And again, just to give you an idea of this, you've got Mikey Moore at 16 years old. You've got, again, Archie Gray will be 18, Lucas Bergvall 18, Tyrese Hall 18, Ashley Phillips 19, Alfie Dorrington 19, Alfie Devine 19, Jamie Donnelly 19, Will Lancashire 19, Dane Scarlett 20, Alejo Veliz 20, Destiny Udogie 21, Pat Matassar 21, Radu Dragashin 22, Brennan Johnson 23, Mickey Van der Ven 23. I mean, Matt, there's no doubt about it. You've outlined it here. They're certainly building what looks like a squad for the future. I think for many Spurs fans out there, and this is not to come back at you, is it a squad that can actually genuinely win, Matt? That's, I think, the question that I think for many will feel is unanswered and one we're not going to know to date because of the nature that we're relying on that word, potential. Is that fair, Matt?
100%, that's fair. The squad that we're looking at there, and as people point out, I missed out Luka Vuskovic, but he's not going to be coming in for another year, so I'm not sure how relevant that will be right now. But it's a team with a lot of potential, but like it's not the team we're asking to win now. The team we're asking to win now has Son, has Vicario, Romero, Basuma, Bentancur, Kulusevski, and the list goes on again. But it is so clear and it's so important that we are building for the future. And I would argue, and as a lot of fans would, this should have come 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we did have this sort of model that was getting to the end of a cycle that we needed to start again, and we went a different route. We tried to win now with Conte, with Mourinho, and it didn't quite work out. So it is coming a little bit too late, and we did have to go back to square one, but it's definitely coming. And there's a lot of talent in there. And I followed on to that tweet and I said that, do I expect every one of those players to live up to the hype? Absolutely not. Do I expect half of them to live up to the hype? Still probably not. But if 5 or 6 of those players do manage to live up to that hype, as you would expect from a Mickey Van de Ven, maybe from a Radu Dragashin and a Pat Matassar, but then from those younger players, from Gray, from Bergvall, from Donnelly, from Lancashire, if total 5 or 6 of them live up to the hype, which is completely realistic, that is an incredible core to a team that we still have to add signings into. It's not like that's what we have and that's it. That's what we need to build the team around. And there's so much talent in there. There's such an incredible mentality in there in the different players that Tottenham have managed to bring in from externally and through the ranks in the academy as well, that it's just really difficult to not get excited. And I think it's just how long Postecoglou stays at the club will be very important to this, but not absolutely critical as it would have been in the past because of the structure that we have above the manager now, because of the recruitment department. And we don't have an official director of football, but in practice we do. And that continuity of style and that continuity of recruitment will be absolutely crucial. And yeah, again, we're just putting the building blocks together. And I know that's not a trophy. That's not something in the cabinet. I know people aren't going to be too happy with the positivity we have for that. But it is progress in every sense of the word, in my opinion.
I need to ask you one question, Matt, before I bring in why this is so important for my homegrown element. You brought up there Ange Postecoglou, and I think the fair thing to say last season, I know many fans may be frustrated that some of the youngsters didn't get more time in certain games. I think, again, managers at Tottenham, and I think I mean this with the greatest respect, have got such a pressure on them to win games. They've always relied on having the tried and tested players and have been fearful about maybe putting too much emphasis on the youth by the nature of that they need to get results and they have to hit the targets. And I think, again, when you look at Ange last season, although Mikey Moore did come into the side towards the end of the season, you'd say, for a couple of games. Jamie Donnelly the same. I think what many fans would have loved to have seen is more of an emphasis of bringing on some of their youth players. And in the question back to that, if you don't mind, you've got Lucas Bergvall, who I know many are excited by, of course, and now with someone like Archie Gray. How confident are you that we will genuinely see actual decent game time for these players when, again, we've got Europa League football, we've got the domestic cups, but also, you know, as a Spurs fan, Matt, you've been here for a lot of the cup shows we did last season. There's a real great emphasis to go far in those cup competitions and win those games. So can you strike a balance where you can play the youth players and play them consistently to get decent game time and at the same time not allow results to suffer? Can you make that balance? Can you find that winning balance?
It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's not something that a lot of managers at the top level have perfected recently. I think that one of the key examples of that could have been with Pep Guardiola and the likes of Rico Lewis and Oscar Bob coming into that team. When it got down to the business end of the season, that game time was effectively nothing. But he did manage to get them in earlier in the season. Postecoglou on ITV at the weekend, or it might have been the weekend before, he had that quote where he said, sometimes if a player is young, a young player, sometimes they're just good enough that you have to play them. I think a Bergvall fits that, and I think an Archie Gray fits that, and to a lesser extent Mikey Moore does. But maybe the problem, that the biggest problem we'll have for that is that you can't really put all three of them in a team together. Even though if you play Gray at right back, you play Bergvall in midfield, and you play Moore on the left, it's a lot of youth and it's a lot of inexperience in there. As mature as they may be in the way that they play, it is definitely a difficult thing. We're going to have a lot more games next season is the first thing I'd say. That in the Europa League, you could probably afford to play younger players a little bit more and still have the quality to get through. In the FA Cup, if we get a League One or a League Two team, you can throw a few of them in there and you can still be confident that you get that result. But it is a very, very tricky thing. And again, even going back to that list, if there are 10 players on that list that live to their potential, how many of them can we actually keep happy with the game time? I mean, there's some there like Jamie Donnelly, Mikey Moore, maybe fighting for a similar position. Same at Lancashire and Scarlett. So we're not going to be able to keep them all happy. But no. I think we have a structure from the dugout, even with, as we spoke about last week, with Matt Wells as the assistant coach, with Nick Montgomery, with Sergio Raimundo coming in as well, all the way up to Johan Lang and his team that want to develop youth and want to get those players on the pitch. So it's not going to be easy. Do I think it's going to happen? For sure. I'm undecided, but I think we have a very good group of people who are the best chance of actually making that happen.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. And I think, again, it's one of those things where time is going to eventually tell, Matt, as to whether those potential players will realise that and be the stars that we all want them to be. Now, look, another element to why Spurs want to get this deal done is around the element of the homegrown quota, which I know, again, strong emphasis on that. Friend of the show, dear friend of mine, John Lily White-Rose, is one that I know keeps a very careful eye in regards to what that impact does mean for Spurs in and around that element of it. And again, just to bring that into focus, John tweeted earlier today, and I hope John won't mind me sharing this, that Archie Gray, as he understands, would count as both homegrown and club trained by the time he was 21. So not 19 until the 12th of March. So 3 seasons would be the 24-25 season, where again he'd fall into that 18 to 19 years category, 25 to 26 where he'd fall into that 19 to 20 years category, and 26-27 season where he'd fall into that 20-21 years, of course, in those categories. I mean, Matt, just to come over to you, I know it's an element that you also keep an eye on when it comes to the obviously proposal around homegrown. Just how important is that, Matt, that Spurs are very much cautious around the homegrown quota? Maybe if you don't mind expanding a little bit, how that does impact Spurs as a club and generally football clubs by the homegrown quota.
Yeah, it is a very tricky one to navigate, and I feel like the rules change ever so slightly every couple of years. It is also worth mentioning the Premier League, the domestic rules are a little bit different to the European rules, so there can be a little bit of a struggle there. I wasn't aware that Gray would count as club trained when he gets to the 3-year mark. I would assume then that Lucas Bergvall and Luka Voskovic would fit into that category as well, which maybe again goes to show the benefit of buying players who are a little bit younger. Now, obviously, Bergvall and Voskovic wouldn't fall into the homegrown quota, but it's just something that's a little bit tricky to navigate, but you have to do. And we've seen it over the last couple of years. I can't remember if it's happened with Tottenham, but with other European clubs where they've had to leave big players out of their squad. Maybe I'd say a role maybe similar to Martial at Manchester United, where he's not going to be a starter all the time, but he's still a player that's in that first team sometimes who has a lot of quality, but just you can't find the room for him in that. But again, it does seem to be something that Tottenham are actively trying to resolve. And with the sales we've had in the last couple of years with Harry Kane and Harry Winks both, Eric Dyer actually doesn't fall into the homegrown. I think domestically only, because he came through the academy at Sporting. But it's something that we do seem to be trying to get back on top of, and it's not something I want to be the reason behind the signing. I don't want to sign Archie Gray because he's homegrown. I don't want to sign a Bergvall because he can become club trained, but it is something that you have to navigate and something that you just have to be a little bit aware of.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. Look, finally, Matt, I want to just cover him off tactically before we look at what else is happening on this PSR deadline, how things may affect Spurs going into those final, I can probably say, minutes, I can say, of that PSR deadline. The clock is ticking fast. And I feel like we're on another deadline day, especially, Matt. It doesn't stop on Last Word on Spurs with bloody deadlines. I'll tell you, bloody deadlines. So we're relying on those deadlines. Tactically as a player, I think it's important to bring into the focus here that, we've made that point. He's mainly a central midfielder, but played much of last season to great effect as a right back, which, as we touched upon earlier, would mark him out as a potential inverted right back in Ange Postecoglou's system. It would allow him to have that flexibility as maybe having him as an alternative to Pedro Porro. I think we've all been, I think all of us as a fan base have been saying, if you really want to be a club that is really pushing for those title, tried in places or want to be in amongst the top four, you've got to have a side that can compete both, again, with a squad and a first team that can really push that level. And it's, again, having two competent fullbacks for, say, the different areas of the football pitch. And again, when you look at Archie Gray as a player, we made this point, 52 appearances last season, made more tackles than any other player aged 21 and under in the Championship. And Matt, I do want to come over to you with him tactically, because I think this is an element where, again, I'm going to flash up this heat map if you don't mind, which, Matt, you can give us a bit more detail on, because tactically, how is this going to affect what this player can bring to Spurs from that level?
Yeah, tactically, he's extremely interesting because, like you mentioned there, he is a natural defender or a natural defensive midfielder, kind of number 6, but he was forced into that right back position last season. And as Jamie says in the chat, he played in midfield against Chelsea in the FA Cup. And while Leeds couldn't get over the line with that result, he was absolutely remarkable. And I feel like Leeds fans still talk about that every day. But looking at the heat map, I think with the caveat that it is a little bit skewed by the fact that he did play in different positions. You can see from how much there is out there on the right hand side that he has played at right back as more of a traditional fullback, a more traditional right back, but he has inverted inside a little bit as well, which you can see from the kind of redder areas there. If you look maybe just in line with the side of the box at the lower part, if that makes sense. So he does have experience in a little bit of both of those areas and both of those roles. But what I think is extremely interesting is his strengths on the ball fit in really well to or inverted right back and or number 6. And what I mean by that is he's really press resistant with a wide passing range, and dare I say, again, very similar to Lucas Bergvall. But he's really capable in kind of using his body to spin away from pressure behind him, from kind of any bit of trouble that he has when he's in possession. He can use that body to spin away with a really close kind of turn radius and really close control. And the ability to do that can really open up a game. And I don't want to compare him to Moussa Dembele, because Moussa Dembele was just one of the best that we've seen at Tottenham at that in the Premier League era. But it's a similar sort of style, while not being there in the quality yet, where just one little spin, one little turn, one little drop of the shoulder in the middle of the park can really open up a game. And the fact that he's able to do that in really congested areas kind of lends towards him being a more central player than a wide player. I mean, he can drop a shoulder and take someone on, but he's so much better at spinning away from a little bit of pressure, and he's able to dribble with the ball. He's able to play passes as well to open up the game. But that ability to receive the ball deep, you either have him in, if you can imagine where Power would play, if we're playing a game right now where he come into that inverted role, he'd have maybe the winger pressing from behind or one of the centre midfielders pushing up with him, where he has the option, if he receives the ball, crucially back to goal, or back to play, I suppose, back to attack, facing his own goal, where he can spin past that pressure. He has the passing ability to maybe play a quick ball into our number 6, a quick ball back to the centre-backs, or to sweep the ball around himself out to Dejan Kulusevski or Brennan Johnson or whoever's playing out on the right wing. He can do that. In the number 6 role, something we saw a lot from Basuma earlier in the season that kind of faded out as the year went on. But when Vicario has the ball, the two centre-backs split, the fullbacks invert, so it's almost like a square in front of Vicario, and you have Basuma coming into that space in the middle where he can receive the ball, again facing his own goal. Again, that's something that Gray would fit very well, whether he wants to spin away or play those passes to his centre-backs to then turn and face the play and move up with the ball, or to drop a shoulder and play a ball out wide or play a ball into one of the midfielders. Then when he gets past that point, when we've got past that kind of first line of pressure and he's facing the play, he's really astute in reading a game, maybe a step or two ahead, and knowing, okay, should I play this ball? Should I try and put Crescencio Somerville in behind on this side? Or should I play the ball? Let's keep possession. Let's keep the ball moving. It's not open enough just yet to play that long ball, which he's really, really good at. But he just knows how to read that game and knows the right decision to make. And he's been praised a lot for that reading of the game. And it's something that just kept things ticking over a lot for Leeds last season. But you also have to mention his ball-winning ability. And you mentioned it there with most tackles of any player under the age of 21.
97 tackles. Yeah.
That's outrageous. That is incredibly impressive. And again, for a player as young as he is, you wouldn't expect it to be one of his strongest traits. Defending 1v1, and there's a lot of really pacey, tricky wingers in the Championship. Mavididi of Leicester would be one. Somerville, even though he plays with Leeds, would be another. But players like Jadon Philogene, Science as well. There's some really impressive players, but a lot of these he I wouldn't say pocketed, but dealt with really well throughout the season. And all the different analysis pieces that I've read or listened to, they've all actually started by saying, despite his lanky frame, which I think is really interesting because it just shows that he's not, you wouldn't naturally expect this from a player that looks like him and a player that is built like him, but he still has managed to find his own way to deal with that. His timing of slide tackles is absolutely brilliant, and he doesn't have the pace to keep up with a winger who gets past him. So he's learned to make sure that they don't get past him, that he doesn't give them that opportunity to break away in pace. But statistically, he doesn't stand out amongst the very best. And I saw someone say it a while ago that he looks bang average when it comes to statistics. That's a fair observation when you're looking at the numbers. But if you consider that he's 18 and that he's playing out of position, for me, looking bang average is actually quite damn impressive. And with his numbers, that with passing, he ranks really well in passing accuracy and passing completion, which you would expect will go hand in hand with not having a lot of progressive passes, but he actually does, and he actually comes out a little bit above average with progressive passes as well. So it means that he's moving the ball up the pitch. It means he's playing these dangerous balls. He's creating chances. You can see there are 18 created throughout the season, but he's doing it with success, and he's for the majority of the time keeping possession as well. So yeah, there's so many boxes ticked, and I'm not going to just wax lyrical and avoid the negatives. He's not very strong in the air. His crossing as well leaves a little bit to be desired, which if he was in an inverted fullback role maybe wouldn't be the biggest issue. So there are definite weaknesses there, and obviously there's stuff to work on. He's only 18 years of age, but if you compare him to other players his age around the world, he's right up there. And that fee that you mentioned, if it is going to be about £35 million, that would have him as the fourth most expensive player under the age of 18 in the history of football. And the three who are above him are Endrick, who's just gone to Real Madrid, expected to be, he's been called the next Pele. There's Rodrigo, Real Madrid, and Vinicius Jr., Real Madrid, are the only three under 18s who've gone for a fee higher than that. So he's in really, really good. No pressure, absolutely no pressure.
No pressure
he's in really esteemed company there. It's a bit of stress that I'm sure he's going to have to deal with, but there's no doubt that Tottenham are getting an immensely talented and immensely mature player, even though he's only 18.
I mean, I wouldn't just say this because, again, I'm not a Leeds fan, but I'd imagine Leeds as a football club, as we've seen, they're quite a demanding bunch of supporters. You know, they're not the easiest to play at, are they, or against, to be honest with you, Matt. So I think from that element, hopefully that transition of coming to Tottenham, and people might be saying this, I think Leeds United are a huge, huge football club. To me, Leeds United are a Premier League football club in their own right, just the way that club has handled itself in the past. Now, again, and you look at maybe some of the players they've got there, there'll be an element where some will maybe look at this and think, well, why aren't Spurs in for someone like Somerville? Why aren't Spurs looking to go for someone like that, who, again, you'd say is probably a Premier League player? And I just want to cover up on that part, again, just to bring that fair balance to the show. Because when you look at some of Spurs' recent signings that they've made over the course of the last window or so, you can see there, Brennan Johnson, Spurs will eventually end up with a fee of around the £55 million mark. James Maddison, again, you've got that fee quoted there. It will rise, expected to around 46.3 million. Pedro Porro came in at 40 million. Mickey van der Ven, 40. Dejan Kulusevski in at 30 million as well. Dragusin, 25 million. Vicario, 18.5 million there. Hopefully Spurs got him. We understand that fee's going to eventually rise to around 15 million. These are in euros, can I just say, not GBP, just to be very, very clear. The reason why we're illustrating this to our watching audience here is because, again, there is those definitely fans out there that just feel Spurs, when it comes to buying players, Matt, we made this point earlier, for every Mickey van der Ven, with no disrespect, there seems to be a Manor Solomon. And the point I'm making there is that when Spurs do seem to sign 7 or 8 players in a summer window, that it appears you get a couple of gems, but then the rest of the players don't appear to ever get to that potential level or ever realise that potential. And I think, again, when they're looking at the window so far, we've got Timo Werner extended for another season. Many would say that's smart recruitment because Spurs are going to need a player that is going to offer that pace. But with their second signing being Archie Gray, a young player, again, we use that word potential. Can you understand, Matt, when fans are looking at the recent signings over the course of the last 12, 18 months, why there's that frustration that we haven't gone out and got absolute proven quality in the first couple of signings coming in the summer?
I think, like I said earlier, I'd understand that frustration a little bit more later in the window. If you look at the players that Tottenham have been heavily linked to, the experience, I wouldn't even say experience or proven, but the kind of bigger targets that you're looking at. 𝐅𝐸𝐸, he's at the Euros. He was on the pitch tonight for England. You have Nico Williams, who I don't think is ever going to happen in a million years, but he's at the Euros. A lot of the big players, the more higher profile players that we'd want to bring in are at the Euros or Copa America. So there's going to be a natural delay to proceedings this summer. And I've seen some people say that, well, Chelsea are making signings, Newcastle, Villa are all making signings. It's because they have to. And like Chelsea sign, or Aston Villa sign Maatsen from Chelsea, and Omari Kellerman goes the other way. With Newcastle, they sell Elliot Anderson to Nottingham Forest, and Vlachodimos goes the other way because they have to make these moves before the PSR deadline. We're not in that position. So this, like you mentioned earlier, Ricky, this deadline day that's coming in today, it doesn't apply to Tottenham in terms of sales. It's something that we were always going to look towards in terms of getting a couple of purchases, maybe a little bit below market value, and that seems to be what we're doing with Archie Gray. But I know it's very difficult to be patient, and we've been being patient for 20 plus years with the current ownership. But in terms of this summer and this summer alone, that natural delay that comes with the major tournaments is going to be a little bit frustrating to get through. But it's just something that we have to contend with, unfortunately.
Okay, Matt, thank you so much. The questioning is over in regards to where Spurs are standing in terms of their future and summer business. We'll see obviously what comes out of that. Again, look, at the end of the day, it looks like many are getting on their hands, a really promising player that there's an excitement around, there's a buzz around. And all I can just say is if you look at from a Leeds United perspective, they're absolutely devastated to lose him here. And someone that's actually watching the show that's a Leeds United fan, and Jamie there, says it there, absolutely devastated Gray will leave Leeds, not just because of the talent we are losing, but the sentimental connection his family have to the football club. And again, that's another big thing. And there have been reports that Leeds United fans are even going to go as far as protesting against the current ownership. Such there is that real connection, as Jamie touched upon there, with Archie Gray and Leeds United. And he's not the only player that could be moving during this deadline, as we understand with the PSR deadline. We know there's moves that are happening in these closing hours. But I think, again, what might be worth looking at is this connection Spurs might be having with Leeds United over the course of this window, because there may be more moving parts to this as things stand. We understand that while Spurs are looking to aim to strike an agreement with Leeds United for Archie Gray, there are also reports, as we understand, that the championships are believed to be keen on a couple of Spurs' own players, one of them being a potential reunion for Farke with Oliver Skipp. Now, the 23-year-old starred under the German in the 2021 season as an ever-present in the Norwich midfield that won the championship. Again, it's worth emphasising Skipp has now made 106 appearances for Spurs' first team, but we understand he's keen to get regular first-team football next season. After 21 matches last season, brought just 7 starts with 5 in the Premier League. Leeds are understood to be looking at both a permanent deal or a loan move, depending on their financial situation, which, of course, will be helped given the fact of the money they are going to be getting for Archie Gray. I just want to ask you, Matt, where you stand on Oliver Skipp. Again, when you look at the fact it's yet another midfielder coming into the club, as things stand on Archie Gray, if everything goes well, it does mean you feel Skipp probably goes down that pecking order one more even so. So where does Skipp stand in any real sense in his Premier League career at Spurs? Do you think this will be an opportunity for Skipp to move on and Leeds could be the perfect club for him, given that relationship he has had with Farke previously?
Yeah, it's unfortunate for it to come this way with a player who came through the ranks, a player again, who's homegrown, who's club trained. But yeah, I think it's clear that he's not anywhere near the top of Ange Postecoglou's preferences for midfield. And okay, came in and did a little bit of a job for a couple of games at left back towards the end of last season, but he's just not the profile of player that is going to work in this team. For me, he doesn't have the ball progression. He doesn't have the technical ability. And while I like him out of possession, he's tenacious. He's athletic. He loves flying into a challenge. He's just not the on the ball option for me. And I don't know if a permanent move down to the Championship now would suit him if that's what he'd want to go with, because like I said, over 100 appearances for a Premier League team across a range of competitions. If there was a chance to loan him to Leeds with maybe an obligation if they get promoted and that sort of deal, if there's any structure that can be put together there, I'm sure Daniel Levy will find it. But I think it will be great for him to work under Daniel Farke, get a bit more game time under his belt, get back to a level of consistency, and he could be a great bargaining chip in this one, as could Joe Rodon or Jed Spence if it does come to it.
Yeah, I mean, Skip, so I think it's worth pointing out there, Matty, Skip is a bit of a rare commodity within Spurs' squad. He's a senior club-trained homegrown player you've touched upon, which is helpful for their, of course, Europa League squad registration. Now, with 3 years left on his contract, 77 Premier League appearances to his name, he's not going to come cheap really for any side looking to a permanent transfer, which will probably not help Leeds in their current situation. But again, given the fact that Spurs are closing in on Gray there, maybe that will help in terms of that relationship between the two, in regards to him getting over the line and being a Leeds United player. So it's one to keep an eye on for sure. The other player to keep an eye on with regards to his future in these coming weeks and days, maybe that of Joe Rodon, who will be familiar, of course, to Leeds United fans. Now, we understand Leeds would love to reunite with Farke, this player, because albeit it was a quicker reunion than it would be for, the likes of Oliver Skip, the reality is the guy that played 50 matches and was one of Leeds' top performers in the Championship. We understand Leeds do remain in the hunt for Rodon, but we do understand Alistair Gold has confirmed that Spurs have received a verbal offer for Joe Rodon from Ipswich. We understand at the moment nothing is formal or submitted in writing yet. And as Ali has reported before, Leicester and Leeds are also after the Welsh defender, who we understand is currently training abroad at the moment in a training camp. Hopefully he hasn't got camp ahead of the new season. Matt, not that I've actually succumbed the guy already to the injury bench. Leeds United fans won't be happy for me doing that already, pretending he's got an injury. But Joe Rodon, a player that did shine for Leeds last season, does that make logical sense? There could be a deal to be done there again, and given the fact that, again, it looks like Spurs are going to get this deal done for Archie Gray. Again, a relationship between the two clubs where that move could be facilitated. Yeah,
definitely. It's one that makes sense for all parties, and there's a difference there between Rodon and Skip, like I mentioned, and Rodon hasn't played a lot of Premier League. He has played a little bit, not really up to the standard that we were hoping from him, but he was phenomenal in the Championship when he was at Swansea, and he's continued that up with brilliant form at Leeds. So maybe the pathway to a more successful career with Joe Rodon is to get a bit more game time under his belt at that level, maybe hopefully bring Leeds up to the Premier League and go from there. But yeah, it's not worked out for Rodon at Tottenham, which again we'd fear is the same as the last couple of players we bought from the Championship, with Jack Clark and Jed Spence in there as well. But yeah, it's one that just makes sense.
Yep, and just to be very, very clear, he has not got cramp at the moment. He's in a training camp. Just to make that very, very clear. No injury yet for Joe Rodon. Having said that famous last words, don't blame me, Leeds United fans, if you do sign him and he goes down in pre-season with an injury. Don't come and look at me and Matty for that. Right, look, we understand if Gray does indeed secure that move to Spurs, he will become, of course, in the 24-25 term, following Timo Werner and Lucas Bergvall in those signings, that is for sure. Again, one to keep an eye on. I think in summary, Matt, where we are, we wanted this to be a quick show. You got two wonderful talkers here. What can I say? Not that I'm making myself a wonderful talker. You got one wonderful talker in Matty Hayes. Matt, how do you expect this news to go down in the coming days? It looks like it will be a done deal. We understand the player will probably end up going for a medical if he hasn't done already fairly soon. Will there be, I think, the fact he's going to wear the Spurs shirt, I'm sure there's going to be some nice words coming out there. The fact he wants to join Tottenham and didn't go down to Brentford at the end of the day. Is it a happy time? Is it a time to be excited? Not that I'm asking you to control what the fan base feel, but is it a time now to get behind the team and ultimately feel for Ange, this is what he wants? And I think this is, again, a crucial point. We make the point about the potential and what we all feel. I think the real thing to really consider is, as long as Ange is getting who he wants, that's absolutely crucial in all this, right? Because, again, it's his players, and as he said before, it's his head on the block.
100%. I wish I could control what the fan base felt, because a lot of the time things would be very, very different. but yeah, like it's absolutely what the manager wants, and as we spoke about on and off the pitch, Archie Gray fits that. And again, I will reiterate, I understand that some people may be frustrated that our first permanent signing, spending a lot of money, is just for an 18-year-old. But what I would say is, before any of this has even happened, I can promise you that anybody who's watched Archie Gray, anyone who knows about Archie Gray, you won't find a single one of them that says this is a bad move for Tottenham. And I think that's really important, because we can argue about finances, we can argue about priorities, but a standalone deal, signing Archie Gray is massive. And again, every big club in the Premier League wanted him. Every big club was watching him. Big clubs around Europe were looking at Gray as a player that they hoped they could bring in. Yep. And it looks as though Tottenham have won that race. And again, that if you want to look at the medium to long-term effect of that as well, it shows the pull that we have now with Postecoglou, and with the likes of James Maddison coming in last year, when we know he could have been tempted by Champions League football at Newcastle, bringing in Mickey van de Ven, who is just an insane footballer. We have that pull now. We're starting to build a squad. The pieces, it's happening slowly, and again, I get that frustration, but the pieces are coming together, and I think Archie Gray could be a very, very important block in that. So yeah, let's just be optimistic. For me, there's no point in being negative when there's still a month and a half before the season starts. Still a month and a half to get so many deals done. Let's just be happy with what we've got, and it's something to be very happy about.
Yeah, man. Look, we're going to end it on a quote from Fabrizio Romano, who has just tweeted in regards to where we are at in relation to this battle for Archie Gray. He says the conversations to sign Archie Gray are ongoing. The player has given the green light to Tottenham, but wait and see what happens between the clubs. While we are recording, Tottenham are trying to make the hijack happen to sign Archie Gray. That is Fabrizio Romano talking to Men in Blazers. So that is where we stand. A conclusive update on Archie Gray to Spurs. It's close. It's getting closer. We'll let you know when it's done. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Matty Hayes. Matt, it's always a pleasure sharing the screen with you. We've got a massive show to bring you on Thursday. And I'm a big journalist in the footballing world that's joining us on Thursday. We'll be getting loads of content to come. And I've got to say, I know this is incredible to say this, and I still can't believe, listen, we're 20 past 11 at night. We've not spoken about the Euros because it is a Spurs channel. And I think even for Matt's sake, we're not going there. We don't need to go there. We've only got 8,000 that are watching this show on YouTube, on Instagram, on X, on Facebook. Can't thank you enough for all your support. I think, again, these shows show you that people just love to know the latest news and all things Tottenham. So if we can, and we don't make too many promises, again, me and Matt, it's a busy lives out there for all of us. We'll try our best to see if we can do some of these late night specials, because they seem to be going down really well. And just a reminder, Matt, if anyone wants to find your opinions or your latest statistics that you put out there to the wonderful Spurs fan base, where can they find those, Matty?
Yeah, look, first of all, I want to say I absolutely love doing these shows. I think the ones we do with journalists are so informative and so insightful, and we learn so much. But with these ones, it's a little more in the middle of the action, kind of reacting as things are happening. And with the roller coaster that we've been through the last 24 hours, thinking Gray was going to Brentford, and then for anyone who cares about the Formula One, with Max Verstappen reverting to type today in the Syrian mountains. It's been a stressful day for a McLaren fan.
Can I just say, that's all you're going to get on any other non-Spurs information.
I had to
squeeze in the Formula One.
I had to put it in there. I'm absolutely fuming. But if you want to hear more of that Formula One frustration, but mainly about Tottenham and a lot about the Euros as well, even though my beloved nation aren't in it. It's at Matt Hayes THFC on X. I'd appreciate a follow over there. And yeah, I rant and rave and put out sometimes a little bit of nonsense, but I think within the nonsense there's some interesting stuff in there. So I'd appreciate a follow. But of course, the main thing is to vote for Last Word on Spurs. Nominate them for the awards, because what are you doing if you're not?
Bless you, Matt.
Quite frankly.
You're an absolute star. Listen, thank you so much there to the wonderful Matty Hayes. I've got to say, again, guys, we can't thank you enough for all the support for the show. We'll be ducking and diving. We'll be in and around the actors, Matt calls it. Hopefully doing a few more of these. I sound like David Brent there. Doing a few more of these with your main Kappa Course Awards to come, depending on what comes Spurs' way during this window. I want to say a massive thank you to a wonderful watching audience, to those that can listen to this back on the audio and repeat, to the wonderful Matty Hayes from myself. Guys, we've been the last one on Spurs. They are closing in on Archie Gray. Keep those eyes peeled. It's coming soon from myself, from Matt. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come